It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. The show is brought to you by CartKing.com, 877-986-7771. You go to cart-king.com. If you ever thought about going into the mobile cart or kiosk business, or maybe you want to add additional point-of-sale locations across the country quickly, bring in additional revenue by adding coffee, food, retail services in your office building, your warehouse, lobby of your apartment house, maybe, office building. You want to open up a little business in the middle of a mall, sell those cell phone cases, or make a fortune. That's what I hear. Anyway, cart-king.com. They have the answer to your needs. For 20 years, they've been working with clients and corporations across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. Even those big ones outside you see next to the Little League Stadium there, selling the hot dogs and the hamburgers and stuff. They built all those things, and they custom ship them all over the world. So you go to cart-king.com. You say, hey, what kind of business do I want to be in? What kind of cart kiosk do I need? You check out the different designs, the styles. They'll custom design it for you, custom build it, and ship it worldwide. Then you contact me. Hey, Ed Opperman, look, we bought one of these carts. I will play an ad for you on the air here and publicize your new business, your opening day in the mall or the lobby, wherever you're going to be. And then also, too, I'll give you a free lifetime membership at OppermanReport.com. Ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap Flake products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, yuck, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin. They're safe for drains and waterways. I've used this stuff myself. The bar soap is great for your body, feels good, feels clean. The soap you use to wash your pots and pans will scrub it up, dub them better than ever before. You get it at puresoapflake.com, greenhome.com, amazon.com, at Whole Foods. Give them a call, 218-568-2525. You want to go into the soap business, give them a call. They'll set you up. Let's see, emailrevealer.com. Get an autographed copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. Also, too, adoption investigations, infidelity investigations, email tracing. You need to locate or identify somebody. All you got is an email address. We can do that for you. You need someone's criminal records. Let's say you're being stalked or harassed by someone. You need to locate them, find out who the hell they are, and put a stop to it. Give me a call. Okay, I have many ways of helping you at the online defamation investigations, bill collection cases, judgment recovery cases, child support recovery cases, all kinds of stuff. You need a private investigator. Give me a shot there at emailrevealer.com. Okay, my first guest today is a gentleman named Ed George. And he's going to be telling us a story about the boys in the bunkhouse, Servitude and Salvation in the Heartland. Mr. George, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on the air with me in a minute. Can you tell us about yourself? Who is Ed George?
Ed George is a man who grew up in Muscatine, Iowa, a small town on the Mississippi River, and went to school and became a social worker. And I've been a social worker now for like 46 years kind of thing, so I've been in the field a long time. And I practiced social work and child welfare, and I've spent 28 years in the field of developmental disabilities, spent some years working with chronically mentally ill. But that's the most horrible thing in my career, I guess, was the boys in the bunkhouse, and when I stumbled across that program one day.
Well, now, in your work every day as a social worker, like, what do? Like, you help people get benefits and apply for SSDI and that kind of thing?
Well, primarily what I did was child welfare. I went out on child abuse cases with children or abuse is reported to the state agency, and I was a social worker that went out to investigate those allegations of abuse, and then sometimes that we would get some programs going and get the family put back together, or sometimes there would not be much to it. sometimes there would be some horrible conditions, and we'd end up with court cases and foster care or alternative care for a while. Those kind of things happen. So I was involved in that type of work for many years with the Department of Human Services, and that's where I ended up coming across the boys in the bunkhouse.
You know, in my work as a private investigator, I come across many families in crisis all the time. You know, they got a criminal case going on or whatever, you know. And from my perspective, I see that the system's failing these people and failing these families. What's been your experience?
The system isn't set up to do it perfectly. It's not a well-funded system.
Yeah.
It's a system with a lot of confusion. You got just the courts involvement, juvenile courts, and you got the agencies involvements, and sometimes you got all kinds of people involved, and everybody lawyers up to kind of thing. So it becomes, sometimes it gets away from thinking about the child first, and gets off on other things. But a lot of good is done too. Lots of times that we've managed to help put families back together that were having a crisis. A lot of times that we were able to, maybe there had been a separation for a while kind of thing, and we were able to put families back together. So it's always the goal of child welfare is to try and keep the children with the family. That's going to be the best result overall for them in long term, and that's what we try to do.
So, like, when you see a family in crisis, is your first instinct to expose them to the Child Protective Services system, or would you try and say, hey, let's try and help these people before they get into the system?
You try and help them and avoid going into the system if you can.
Yeah.
You can get the kind of support that they need and get some help into the home. That many times you can avoid the whole thing, but keep the family together, keep the children safe, and keep things going for them. And that's what you try to do. And you can get different types of services into the services where you can have people that work in the homes with the family kind of thing and help them learn to interact better with their children or learn to provide the type of care for their children that they need. So you can get that kind of staff in there. You can get nursing staff in there. Sometimes you can get the school to do more kind of thing. Sometimes everybody can work together, and you work together as a team. You try and support that family if you can. If it's safe for the child, that's what you do. If it's not safe for the child, then you have to take a different approach kind of thing and get the child out of the situation temporarily and hope that you can work them back into that home. That's always what you're trying to do, is keep families together.
Yeah, you know, it's amazing when you think about it, because what's more important than the family unit? What's more important in your life and my life? Our own family. You know, there's nothing more important. And yet,
right.
Here's this portion of our life that we can't kind of pull it together and help other families and help. You know what I mean? It would seem to be the simplest thing we could do, is to help each other out.
It is in many cases a simple thing. And some of the things that we're providing are simple needs that people have, kind of thing. You know, sometimes it's basic medical stuff where you're going into, they need food, shelter,
right.
They need to job, they need to have some income, they need to get health care. You're trying to get some of those basic things in there, but sometimes you're helping with other issues too, psychological issues and some problems that people have. Yeah. But basically, it's not rocket science or anything like that. You're trying to meet human needs kind of thing, and trying to put the family and keep the family together. And it's a very rewarding work kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree with you there too. But now, if I could give you one wish, if Ed George had one wish that could be granted to help these families, what would that one thing be? More money?
I guess money is probably the foundation of it. It's getting that positive attitude on everybody trying to help the family and everybody working together and trying to get that support. And a lot of times it does come with money, so you can pay the agencies and you can pay the people to do the job that has to be done. So I guess it always does come down to money in the end, but you need to have a lot of good people that are going to be supportive, that are going to reinforce good behaviors kind of thing, and that are going to encourage and try and motivate the family to stay together and see if they can work some things out and solve these problems. And that's what we're trying to do.
So I guess one of these cases you ran across, the boys in the bunkhouse. Why don't you give us an idea of what that story is about, the boys in the bunkhouse?
What the story is about about a turkey processing plant in West Liberty, Iowa, and how they were working together with a group out of Texas, at Goldwaite, Texas, and they were taking people out of the state institutions, and they were getting vocational rehabilitation to assess them and get them trained a little bit and then they were shipping them out to, there were 6 different places around the country they were shipping them to, and to provide care. And these places for care really were places where they were going to work them and work them very, very hard. So what they looked for in the state institutions, they looked for people who may have intellectual disabilities in that, but who physically were capable of doing some physical type of work. And they also looked for people who didn't have families connected with them. That's an interesting part of it, kind of thing. They felt that families could interfere with this whole work thing, and that would not be good for them. That's what they told us, kind of things. But so these were being set up, and one of them was in Atalissa, Iowa. And Atalissa, there was an abandoned old school there that had been sitting empty for several years, kind of thing, and was in terrible disrepair. And one night, I got a call towards the end of the day, towards the end of an afternoon, from a Catholic nun who was also a nurse and who worked with migrant laborers in Muscatine area, kind of thing. I tried to settle them out, kind of thing, get them out of the migrant stream. That was her job, actually, kind of thing. But she heard a rumor down at the Lewis Rich plant in West Liberty that there were a bunch of people that were just brought in suddenly from Texas to do work at the plant, and they were people who obviously had significant needs, and there people were worried about them being exploited. So when she gave me the call, I got called late in the day, and that was just a bad thing that happened for me anyway, kind of thing. I was fairly inexperienced worker, maybe a year or so experience, kind of thing. I got a call that it might be an abusive situation. They thought that this was an exploited situation, possibly. They weren't sure. And she thought someone should go out and check it. And at that point in time, Iowa didn't have dependent adult abuse laws, kind of thing, but we wanted to check, and we did follow up on some of these and try to find out if there's any way we could be of help and see what's going on and try and make sure everybody's safe. So it was the end of the day, and I made a decision, probably not the best in the world, to go out by myself and see what's going on. I actually expected that there would not be anybody living in the school, because I had been in the school about 6 to 8 months prior to that, kind of thing, with a group of citizens there who were trying to figure out what they could do with this old building. And at that point in time, it was just such a dilapidated and filthy place. I found it hard to believe that they suddenly moved a bunch of people in there, kind of thing. So I thought, well, maybe the story isn't all true. I'll just go out and find out what's going on. And when I did, I knocked on the door out there, kind of thing, and the school looked pretty dilapidated to me. I thought, wow, they didn't fix anything up on the outside anyway, kind of thing. And I knocked on the door, and I was greeted by a bunch of people, kind of thing. They all ran to the door, kind of thing, and I was greeted by probably 15, 20 guys, kind of thing. They were all, what do you want, and welcoming me and all that kind of stuff. And I explained what I was doing there, that I was with the Department of Social Services, and that I was here to see how things were going, kind of thing, and what's going on here. I just wanted to find out about the situation. And they started talking to me about the situation, and they were going on for a while. It was very simple conversations. They were saying they worked at Lewis Rich, they got some money, they got popped some now and then, kind of thing. They went to town and got a haircut. There were a few different things that they said, kind of thing, but you had the feeling the place stunk pretty bad. The place was filthy dirty. They wanted to show me their rooms. All the windowsills were covered with dead flies, kind of thing. The floors were, you can tell someone tried to make a path with a broom or something, kind of thing, but everywhere that wasn't in a walkway, kind of thing, was filthy dirty, kind of thing. And it was a real dump, kind of thing. And then they had bunk beds in there, and they had, at this point in time, they had over 40 people that were in there, kind of thing. I've heard people say there were 60 some, but I don't know for sure of the number, kind of thing. But the pasture that was set up was in beds, lined up on bump up, kind of thing. And it was an awful sight. But while I was talking to the guy, suddenly this guy comes in, acting like he's the head of the place, kind of thing. He was from Texas, and he told me to get out, and I told him I wasn't going to get out. I was here at the state, and I was going to find out what's going on here, kind of thing, and I needed to talk to him for a while. And we talked, and some of the things he told me were just strikingly appalling. He's the one that told me that how this system works, kind of thing, and how they're training these young men, kind of thing, and how they get them from the state institutions. He explained to me that they look for people that don't have families involvement, because families kept saying, you know how families are. Those families will just interfere. Those families will interfere. So we look for ones that don't have family involvement. Went on about that. He went on about how that they take them to work every day, that they work a regular shift kind of thing, and how they do their jobs, which some of it was hanging and cutting the necks of turkeys and tying them up by their legs kind of thing, and now working at the Lewis Ridge plant. And then I asked about money and that, and it turned out that they get $65 a month.
Oh.
Unreal kind of thing, kind of thing. And then he said sometimes we give them a couple of bucks so they can go get pop or something like that if they don't have it kind of thing. But $65 a month is what they get. And then I, of course, asked about their Social Security and that. And, of course, the Social Security was assigned over to Henry's Turkey Service to help pay for the room and board and everything kind of thing. So these people were getting $65 a month is basically what they were. And that was it. And that was how they were supposed to live.
Let me ask you a couple questions. You mentioned that when you got there, you saw 15 guys, but there's about 40 guys living there. These were all men?
Yeah, all men, and eventually they all came down, I think, kind of thing. It was hard to tell. We were in the hallway there kind of thing, talking kind of thing. And, I had that guy in my face wanting me out, and I was asking him questions and trying to find out what's going on. So it was, but we were surrounded, all the guys, the boys in the bunkhouse kind of thing.
Now, were these kids or men? How old?
These were men. And the boys, when Dan Barry uses the term boys, I would never have used that term. They're men, and they should be referred to as men. But when he wrote the book, he wanted people to understand that the people of Atalissa referred to them as boys.
Gotcha.
And the people of Atalissa called them the boys in the bunkhouse. And the ranchers themselves called them the boys. So he wanted to put that in the title, boys in the bunkhouse. And to me, it should have been men in the bunkhouse kind of thing, but that's just coming from different perspectives on it. He thought boys more effectively conveyed the attitude that the people around them had.
Now, how were they dressed? Were they wearing like uniforms? Did they have clothing supplied to them?
They had dirty clothes kind of thing. They had old clothes on kind of thing. They were dressed not very appropriately, kind of like they came out of the institutions kind of thing.
Right.
They had jeans kind of thing, but they were old blue jeans kind of thing. Some had bib overalls kind of thing, that kind of stuff. That's what they had, and most of it, some of it didn't fit very well. Some of it looked dirty kind of thing. It was quite a scene there kind of thing.
Now, what about, did they have running water?
Yeah, they had running water kind of thing. There was a like a school, couple school restroom there kind of thing, where they had a couple showers in each one. I think it was 2 or something like that in each restroom or something, and they could take showers and that kind of stuff. But again, the abilities that they had and how well they cleaned themselves could be questionable kind of thing.
Right, sure. And electricity. They had electricity.
They had electricity. Yeah, they had electricity there kind of, and they had, some of them had portable radios kind of thing at that point in time, or cassette players and that kind of stuff they had kind of thing. And there was a television in one of the big rooms kind of thing that they had. The gymnasium had a bigger screen television, not big by today's standard, but back then it's probably 25 inches or something. But it was a bigger screen, and they could sit there and watch television kind of thing. Some of them.
What year was this?
This was 1974.
1974. Okay. Now, and you mentioned that you talked to this guy who was in charge, and he's explaining to you, hey, we get him from the institution, and we don't want him to have families or anything like that because that interferes with our work. Was this guy guilty? Was he guilty when he was talking to you, or he just felt like, oh, this is great?
He was explaining how the system worked. I mean, he was remarkably honest with me, kind of thing. He just explained this is how the system works. Even when I asked about money and that kind of stuff, he explained it to me how it all works, kind of thing. And he thought this is wonderful, kind of thing. These guys were working, kind of thing, and things seem to be going great here, kind of thing, at the bunkhouse. He didn't live in the bunkhouse. He lived in a trailer that was out back, kind of thing, where. So that meant nobody was supervising all these people all night long, kind of thing, which could lead to all kinds of other problems, kind of thing. But
I can only imagine. I can only imagine what was going on in this place. Now,
some of the stronger, more capable people could pick on the others and that kind of stuff, and I'm sure that stuff went on. So some of them were saying that they couldn't get some things, kind of thing. But the gentleman that ran it, not a gentleman, I should call him. The man that ran it, he was open and honest about the money situation. He was open and honest about the family situation. I asked a question about, if any of them couldn't do the job, what happened to them? And he said, well, we're very careful, and most of them can do the job, but we can find something for them to do. I said, well, what if they really can't do the job? He said, well, then they go back to the state institution in Texas.
Yeah, but the thing is, if they're getting money from the state for their SSDI, which today would be $1,000, and they're only getting paid $65, who's ever running this operation is making a profit whether they work or not.
That's the story of it all, kind of thing, is that there was a profit being made by a group called Henry's Turkey Service that was based in Goldthwaite, Texas. And they were making good money, I think, off of kind of thing. I don't know how much or anything like that. And then, I found out later, I didn't find out that night, but I did find out later they were in 6 different places in the United States, kind of thing. So it wasn't like it was just Atalissa. But Atalissa was the one that kept going the second longest anyway, kind of thing.
Well, let me ask you a question.
North Carolina that was going on until 2011 or 2012.
Really? This is going on until 2012?
Yeah. Well, Atalissa, actually, the whole thing didn't blow up into a big story and get the national press until 2010, kind of thing, when it was the Department of Human Services took care of the situation, kind of thing, and moved people out.
Well, let me ask you. Okay, let's go back. The day you're there in 1974, you walk in, you see this horrific scene. What do you do that night? Do you go home and go to bed? Were you haunted? What happened?
I broke down in tears on my way home, kind of thing. I just couldn't believe I lived about 15 miles away in Muscatine, kind of thing. And I just couldn't believe it. I had at that point in time, I had a cousin who was my age who had intellectual disability, and I was raised very close to Billy, kind of thing. And I knew him, and he was my friend, and Billy and I were inseparable at times, kind of thing. And I was picturing, him in this situation. He was in a good situation. He was at a good school. He was in a good program, kind of thing there, a day program now, kind of thing at that point in time. So I just couldn't handle. I was really terribly, terribly, terribly upset. And I hadn't had that happen to me much before, kind of thing, Normally I was pretty durable, I thought, kind of thing, but it just tore my heart out that these people were living like this. And I asked if anybody ever quit. No, quit. They never quit the job, and he said, well, they did go to the institution. They know that. Okay, they can't quit. Okay, this is wonderful, kind of thing. And by that point in time, I asked about religion, kind of thing. They go to church, and he said, no, you don't know how these boys would behave in church, kind of thing. We just can't have that kind of stuff. And I asked if they could go to the store in town, kind of thing. And he said, well, we drop them off, and there's always somebody with them if they go there, kind of thing. So it's a pretty tight operation, and it's pretty rural in Atalissa. Atalissa is a town of about 200 people, kind of thing. So it's not like there's a lot going on there, kind of thing. So basically, they just stayed in there on the weekends too, kind of thing, and that's what they did. Occasionally, they went to town. I asked about going to town, and he talked about going out to get a haircut. That was a big thing. One Saturday, every now and then, they went into West Liberty, and they didn't go when regular people went. They went a special time was set up for Henry's Turkey Service to bring all the boys in and get all their haircut at the same time, kind of thing.
Okay, so wait, hold on right there. So then people in that town, the barber shops, the store selling the pops, like you described, they knew that there was slavery going on in that town.
I believe that kind of thing. I do believe that. Dan, if you read Dan Barry's book, he kind of goes to a different angle that maybe it started off as a good program kind of thing, and over the years it deteriorated kind of thing. And there may be some truth to that too. It may have gotten better for a while and then deteriorated. I'm not saying Dan's wrong kind of thing, but to my point of view, it was so horrible when I saw it in '74. I can't believe it wasn't any worse. It wasn't. It was just a horrible place from then on, kind of thing. It didn't suddenly get better, and there was good intentions here, kind of thing. But Dan leaves room for you to interpret that if you want to, kind of thing. There could have been good intentions behind this. I don't believe so at all.
No, I can't imagine that either. Now, you must have left there that night thinking, okay, I'm going to report this back to the home office. I'm going to go back to the office tomorrow, and I'm going to report this, and they're going to come in here and rescue all these people. Is that what you thought?
That's what I thought. I thought we would take care of it tomorrow, kind of thing, kind of thing. I thought I just need to calm down. I need to get my act together. I need to talk to my supervisors about this kind of stuff. I need to help figure out what we're going to do here, kind of thing, because we got to do something, kind of thing. you never dreamed that when I got back the next day that, nobody acted like it was a big deal kind of thing. And they finally, I kept saying it is a big deal. We got to do something kind of thing. So eventually I squawked enough that they had a supervisor from Davenport, which is a bigger town up from Muscatine kind of thing. He was the area coordinator kind of thing, or area supervisor. He came down and I explained everything to him kind of thing. And I said, we got to do something about this kind of thing. And, and he said, well, we will. We'll take care of this kind of thing. We'll take care of this matter. You leave this up to me kind of thing. And you leave this up to me kind of thing. Well, I didn't kind of trust the up to me. I kind of did. I kind of thought he means well, but I want to make sure he does things. So I started doing my own checking around too kind of thing. And checking was what can be done. I checked with, building inspectors, health departments, state legislators, county board of supervisors, sheriff's office kind of thing. I even called like the ARC, which at that time was called the Association for Retarded Citizens, but the ARC, even called them, and I said, do you know anything about this place in Texas? And they said they gave them an award in 1968
oh my God.
for training people. And I said, well, what did you see? Well, we didn't go see it. We heard that they were doing a wonderful job training these people in Texas and giving them jobs out in the community. That's not what's going on. It's a lot. It's not that. It's something horrible going on here, kind of thing. And but that made it hard to get people to listen. And I had my boss from Davenport actually did go out to the home, and then he came back. This is probably 4 or 5 days later, kind of thing. And then he came back and told me he didn't think it was so bad. He thought it was all right, kind of thing. And they're fixing things up, and he says it's getting better. And I started saying, I don't know about this. And then he told me, I don't want you to ever go out there, though. They're mad at you, kind of thing. And they're calling names and things, kind of thing. You just stay away from there, kind of thing. So I did. What I did is I started just doing checking around. That's where I found out. And it was expensive back in those days. You didn't have the internet, kind of thing. But I started looking for how I could find out where turkey plants were in the United States, kind of thing, and who might have something to do with it, kind of thing. I called Chamber of Commerce's when I found a turkey plant and tried to find out if there was any kind of a program. And just through this kind of stuff, I ran up a tremendous phone bill back then. I did it on my own time. But I found that they were in 6 different states, kind of thing. And I thought this was a huge deal. And I kept squawking about it, and I squawked about it to everybody I talked to, kind of thing. And I was told to shut up, and they were going to work on it. And it seemed like nothing was going to happen. And so one day I was talking to him, and I said, look, all I want to do then, I want to write a letter to the director of the state agency, kind of thing, and make sure that he's aware of my opinion, kind of thing, and he's aware of what I saw out there, kind of thing, so I know that it gets down there. He said, well, we'll see about that kind of thing. Well, then a few days later, I got a call from my supervisor. She said, he's coming down to see you tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. And I thought, he doesn't normally come down to see me very often, kind of thing. Kind of thing. I thought, something's up. And I thought, I don't know if he's going to let me do my report that I wanted to do, kind of thing. So I spent that whole night typing up a scathing report where I called it a slave labor camp, and where I explained what it was all, and that it was depriving people of all their rights. They didn't have any rights, that they lost all human rights when they went into this program, kind of thing, and that it was exploitive, and that it shouldn't be allowed, and they get $65 a month, and all those kind of things. I put it in a scathing letter that I sent to the head of the Department of Human Services, and I sent it to my boss in Davenport, and it ended up getting on the front page of the Davenport paper, the Quad City Times. It was called the Quad City, the Davenport Democrat at the time, but it was the Quad City Times. And they had it, front page headline. It says, the social worker calls place a slave labor camp, or something like that. So then everything hit the fan for me.
What year was that?
This would have been still 74.
74, but still within a year. Okay. All right. And then what happens now? Well, you know what? Let's take a commercial break. It's a good time to take a commercial break. We're with Ed George, who has this fascinating story about the boys in the bunkhouse. He uncovered these men being held in slave labor conditions, a one-man crusade trying to rescue these men against all odds. We'll be right back with more of Ed George right after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe add new point-of-sale locations across the country quickly, or bring in revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services to your office building, warehouse, or lobby? CartKing.com is the answer to your needs. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail, coffee, food carts, and kiosks that money can buy. For 20 years, CartKing.com has been working with clients across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. That's www.cart-king.com. Give them a call at 877-986-7771. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you. So you go to the website, CartKing.com, you check out their different designs and models. You pick out which design applies to your business. They'll custom design it for you, custom build it for you, and ship it worldwide. CartKing.com.
Hey you, podcast listener. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. Take the blue pill. You wake up in your bed and go back to listening to mundane podcasts that won't challenge your religious beliefs and your so-called truths about reality, the universe, and consciousness. Take the red pill. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast, hosted by Mark Anthony Peterson, and he will show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Event Horizon takes a walk into the paranormal with a splash of conspiracy. It's the podcast that would be born if David Icke and the X-Files had a baby. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast by Mark Anthony Peterson on Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Stitcher, or any of your other favorite podcast platforms. Remember, all we are offering is the truth, nothing more.
PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with pure soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. Order today at PureSoapFlakes.com, greenhome.com, Amazon.com, or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here today with a gentleman named Ed George. He's a social worker, and he's telling us a story about the boys in the bunkhouse. Now, Mr. George, you're telling us about how your report there, your scathing report, made it to the front page of the newspaper. By the way, any idea how they got a copy of that, or just one of those things?
That's I guess a secret for all time kind of thing.
Okay.
But they got a copy of it, kind of thing. The story had to get out. I always thought if the story got out, that people are good enough that people will do something about it, kind of thing. I was getting discouraged because I had contacted legislators, I had contacted boards of supervisors. I'd done everything I could do, everybody I could think of that had any kind of sway or power, and I was getting nowhere. But I thought, it's a general public, nobody's going to put up with this stuff, kind of thing. I can't bury this story, kind of thing, if it gets out. But it got out, but nothing ever happened. There was no follow-up to it. I thought that the Quad City paper would follow up and investigate, kind of thing. I thought maybe a larger paper in the state, the Des Moines Register, would follow up and investigate, because they would see what's in the Quad City paper. But it never happened, kind of thing. Nothing ever happened. And I to this day, I can't understand that. I was scheduled at that point in time. This whole thing happened in the fall of 1974, and I was starting I was part-time graduate school during the fall, and I was going full-time January of 75, kind of thing. So I ended up going away from town, and nothing ever happened.
Now, and you were being discouraged from going back to the facility there and visiting then, right?
Yeah, at that point in time, I didn't mention it, that the attorney, I called him attorney rich, telling me that I better keep my mouth shut and that they could sue me and threatening me kind of thing with that. So I wasn't sure what to do. I didn't have much they were going to get if they sued me, but they told me they could make my life trouble kind of thing. So
yeah, they can. Now, but there was ultimately a lawsuit. There was a lawsuit on behalf of these men.
No, there was no lawsuit. These attorneys just wanted to shut me up, kind of thing.
No, but wasn't there a lawsuit on the men in on the work camp? Yeah.
If we go on to the next part of the story, kind of thing, Yeah. During the next 34 years, I checked, in their situation several different times as best I could, trying to find out local people if anything's going on or if anything happened with the story. But I couldn't anywhere with it, and I tell people the story, and they just look at me, kind of thing, and go on, kind of thing. So I just didn't go anywhere, kind of thing. I know that they had 2 or 3 different calls over that period of time, alleged abuse, kind of thing, calls somewhere about them. Next time, the Department of Human Services sent in some people to look at it, bigger shots, kind of thing, than the typical line social worker. And they always came back saying, "Oh, things are okay. They're doing well. Everything's going good." And I never believed that, and I know it wasn't true. The story that was told. Or there, when people tried to run away, and one man kind of there's stories about what went to this kind of thing. I did. Is they put in the 2 body tech, and I thought I could do that. I'd be gun. You can do that. They did things.
Medical time, medical work, no death, police bodies.
Nobody cared. Kind of thing. These were people, and for sure they had disabilities. They had died. They were probably getting years to kind of thing. Sure. But it happened, kind of thing. The things for a while, none of them had Medicaid, which they all would have been eligible for, but they didn't get Medicaid because there'd be too much intrusion, and they thought that they'd be bothered by too many people if they crossed the line and got the Medicaid services, kind of thing. So for a while, if they needed some medical care, well, they probably didn't get it most of the time, I think, but if they did, I guess it was coming out of their own funds or from coming out of the Henry Security Services funds or whatever kind of thing, but they weren't getting routine type medical care. Mm-hmm.
So in all this, no one involved in this scheme of slave labor, taking advantage of people with mental illness, handicapped people, received any kind of a jail sentence or any kind of a punishment, any kind of criminal liability whatsoever? No.
And everything got covered up each and every time that the story came out, kind of thing. It tried to come out. When there was a man froze to death that got some publicity in the Des Moines Register and everything, but no follow-up kind of thing. It was just there kind of thing, kind of. So, yeah, you had to begin to wonder.
Now, was this turkey factory, there's this were they that big an employer? Were they that big and powerful that they could control so much going on?
Well, yeah, they had influence in the state. Louis Rich was a backer of the governor at the time, kind of thing, as far as personally kind of thing. I don't know about the corporation, but personally kind of thing. He was a big shot in the Republican Party at that point in time, too, kind of thing. So how whether that had an effect, I don't know.
Now, it's amazing that you can have political influence that allows you to hold slaves. You can have slavery.
There was one other investigation by the department in the 90s, I think around 98 or so kind of thing. And again, a couple of people that they discussed it and they thought, well, it's really not a responsibility. It's not, they don't have a residential program. It's not licensed by the state as a residential program. So we don't have to do it. And it's a vocational service kind of thing, but yeah, they're meeting the law. They have a work where I'm sure work according to what we'll do. They say have certificates. I don't know if they're doing it. So it was to be paid, their kind of thing. And I never believed it. I was way away from there kind of thing. But anytime I was in the area, I always had to drive by that place. And it didn't look any better to me. I mean, you saw this ugly monstrosity of a place. It's on the cover of Dan's book. There's a picture of it. Somebody painted it an awful green one time kind of thing. And it had windows were boarded up kind of thing. Everything just looked junky and falling apart there, and it was. I mean, it was an old school that nobody ever took care of.
Yeah, so just imagine, they're getting free labor, they're getting their Social Security disability, they're stealing that money from them. They couldn't provide them with decent housing, they couldn't a coat of paint They couldn't provide a coat of paint and some clothing to wear.
Of course they could have.
Yeah.
They didn't.
Amazing.
And that's the thing. They were making money off this thing. They had a system down there that I forgot to talk about a little bit. They had a nursing home down there. If you got in their programs, they could bear. Depending on their
It was also, wasn't it?
The story opened in 2009. DHS had a raid on the place, actually, kind of thing. Some people got together and thought there's something going wrong there, and the people were starting to complain a little bit. Somebody called in a couple complaints. It really happened when one of the kids, I'm sorry, I got it a little mixed up, but one of the boys' relatives tried to find out how much money that teeth were going to closer to him,
right.
And thought I can't remember the name, but a significant amount of money, maybe $103 or something, insignificant amount. She said, he was there for 40 years kind of thing, that's all he's got. And she got upset about it, and she went to the state ombudsman, and the state ombudsman then went to DHS, and when then DHS had a group of people come out there and move everybody out. And then that happened just kind of came with social workers from all over the area kind of thing, and they all came in, and each one was assigned to a person, and they got them out of the place, and they took them to a motel in Muscatine, and then worked from there to try and get them into decent residential, and they shut down the place in Atalissa. After that, there was a lawsuit, where actually the boys in the bunkhouse won, and they were supposed to get a bunch of money kind of thing, but Henry's Turkey Service was pleading that they had no money and they were bankrupt, and they never got anything from it kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the settlement was in the millions, and then it got whittled down to $50,000 a victim, and then even then they didn't even get that.
Yeah, they didn't get that either kind of thing. As far as I know kind of thing. I could be a little off, but they may have gotten a little something, I don't know, but not much. And then what happened, they went to a program in Waterloo, a good program, so that they would provide the services and housing for them and a follow-up if they lived in apartments. They got them in. A couple of them went into group homes that they were up there, a lot of their apartments kind of thing, and just went in and working in that. So a lot of them living a very good life up there is what they say kind of thing. They have some fun up there now kind of thing, and they're dressed appropriately, they look good, they feel good, they get the medical care they need, they get the dental care that they need. Things are going well for them now, but they were deprived of at least 34 years of, they were put in slavery for 34 years. How do you make up for that?
It's just unbelievable. Now, this turkey company, the turkey company, is the turkey company still in business?
Oh, yeah. It's owned by Cooperative, I think, or something in West Liberty kind of thing, but it's still the basic same plan as their kind of thing, doing the same operations kind of thing with turkeys kind of thing. Lewis Rich had gotten bought off by Oscar Mayer, and I think somebody else bought the Oscar Mayer firm at one point in time, so it changed hands several different times. But Henry's Turkey Service stayed with it kind of thing through the changes until 2009, and then they closed her down. So the boys are doing okay now kind of thing. They're in, and they're doing okay, but some of them, Dan talks about in the book, have been doing that kind of work for so many years in refrigeration kind of thing. They had their hands, or some of them cut their fingers and cut fingers off, and their hands are crippled up, and backs are hurting kind of thing. These are old men now kind of thing, and it's just so sad that so much was taken away from them. And they report abuse, that they were physically beaten kind of thing. They report some awful things that happened to them. They didn't do well in the job. They were deprived of things and had to stand in the corners. They got hit. It's unreal. It really is.
Have you reached out and met any of these guys since all this happened?
I got to see them all. Dan Barry came to Des Moines to talk about his book kind of thing, and he invited all the boys in the bunkhouse to come down, and they did kind of thing. And they were in an audience. We were at an auditorium at the state historical building kind of thing there kind of thing. And they came in and listened to Dan talk for a little bit, and everybody gave him a standing ovation. And I got to talk to they were kind of funny. Some of them wanted to know if I wanted their autographs kind of thing on a book kind of thing. And, they were just all really proud to be with Dan kind of thing and that kind of stuff. So it was kind of neat kind of thing. They all came down, not all of them, but as many as could travel down from Waterloo. So I got to meet a lot of them kind of thing. And
Now, have you been interviewed on the radio about this before?
No, not personally, no.
So this is the first time you've been interviewed and told your story?
I told my story to Dan, pretty much, kind of thing.
For the book.
Dan called me. But the hard part of this whole story for me, I don't know if this is interesting to you or not, but I left the Department of Human Services shortly after graduate school kind of thing and went on to do work in the field of developmental disabilities and running programs, doing that kind of thing, starting group homes and apartment programs, living in that kind of thing. But when I got to be somewhere in my 50s, I decided that I wanted to go back to the Department of Human Services and do child welfare again. So in 2008, I got a job at the Department of Human Services, and I was a supervisor at the Department of Human Services in child welfare. And then the Henry's Turkey Service hits the paper about 3 months later, kind of thing. And Dan was calling me about it after that, and I was trying to tell him, look, I work for the Department of Human Services. I don't know how much I can say about it all, kind of thing, kind of thing. But I decided to tell my story anyway, kind of thing. But
was there any repercussions from the Department of Human Services?
Yeah. There's just some funny things that happened, kind of thing. I had to go up and, of course, tell my supervisor that what happened, kind of thing, kind of thing, and fill him in, kind of thing, so he knew what was going on. I was getting calls, unbelievable number of calls from every major news organization in the country, kind of thing. My phone was ringing off the hook because there was someone when the story broke. It was said that I had been the first one to uncover it in 1974. So everybody was calling me, and I didn't know what to say, kind of thing. I wasn't answering my phone anymore, kind of thing. But Dan got through to me one time, and I talked to him about it. But anyway, I went upstairs, and I told my supervisor, he said to call the public relations man for DHS, kind of thing, Department of Human Services, and to see what he said. Of course, he told me not to say anything and make no comment, kind of thing. So, but then he asked me a question. He said, we have your file here, kind of thing, and we see where you worked and that kind of stuff, but who is this man, James Strickland? And I said, well, James Strickland was my area administrator, the boss for Davenport, for the district there, and supervised probably 250 employees for several years there, kind of thing. Well, we have no record of James Strickland. I said, you have a record of James Strickland, and you have a record of me? I was a peon. And you have no record of this man that supervised all these people? That's what he said. He said he had no record of him. I had unbelievable, kind of thing. Well, what happened to that record? I don't know.
Wait, there's no record of this man's employment?
Yeah, they had no record of it. But they had a record of my employment, and that goes back 34 years, too, at that point in time, kind of thing. They said they had no record of his. I don't quite believe that. But then there was a legislative hearing in Des Moines, kind of thing, where, I don't know if it was Senate or House, but they were following up on the Henry's Turkey Service kind of story, kind of thing. And the boss of DHS was asked if there were any records from the old days in Muscatine about what was going on. And he said, well, there wasn't much. There was just this one old manila folder we found down there, kind of thing, with a few stories in it or something. He said, that's all we had, kind of thing. And he passed it around. Well, in there was my letter. So the story got picked up a little bit again, kind of thing, all over the place, kind of thing, that, what happened in 74 and how I tried to do something and nothing was done, kind of thing. So
did anybody run in these hearings think to call up the guy who signed that report and ask you to come down and testify?
Well,
Guess not.
I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
I think one of my friends there, colleagues, kind of thing, that saved it for posterity, kind of thing, somewhere, kind of thing.
Right.
And saved it for. I had no record. When the whole thing hit, I wondered, wow, I wish I had my letter and I could see what I said, kind of thing, kind of thing, because everybody was calling me about it, and it was in the paper and all that kind of stuff. But then the letter was found at that hearing where he threw out that manila folder, kind of thing. It was in there, and then the press picked up on it all, kind of thing, and found out all about it all, kind of thing, and the story hit again, kind of thing. And that's where the news sources were calling me all over, kind of thing.
Ed, we're out of time. I can't thank you enough. This is an incredible story. You've lived a part of history here, and you tell the story very well. Is there anything you want to leave us with before we go?
Yeah, it's just everybody has to watch out for their neighbor, kind of thing, and then make sure that people are okay. These were real dependent adults. These were people that were obviously had some serious issues, kind of thing. you don't leave them in an abandoned dump on a hill overlooking Atalissa, Iowa kind of thing. That kind of stuff can't go on. And I do feel, as Dan found, even after that, he found a place down in North Carolina that was doing the same thing. So it still goes on somewhere in the United States. I'm sure there's these kind of plants going on, these kind of work situations kind of thing.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe not just...
I know what goes on because I uncovered one myself. It was an adoption thing going on. It was the same situation where they were adopting these kids from overseas and putting them to work in these again, like a migrant, like a farm type of operation too as well. And they had them living in trailers. Ed George, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. If anything comes up in the story, you want to come back on the air, just give me a call.
Okay, thanks.
Good night. There you had Ed George. The story is called The Boys in the Bunkhouse, Servitude and Salvation in the Heartland. It's written by Dan Barry, but it was lived by Ed George. And great last words there. Keep an eye on each other. Let's look out for each other, man. What a beautiful way to live your life, man. Thank you so much, Dan George. Ed George, we're going to take a little commercial break. We'll be right back. And now a word from our sponsors. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe add new point-of-sale locations across the country quickly, or bring in revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services to your office building, warehouse, or lobby? CartKing.com is the answer to your needs. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail, coffee, food, carts, and kiosks that money can buy. For 20 years, CartKing.com has been working with clients across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. That's www.cart-king.com. Give them a call at 877-986-7771. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you. So you go to the website, CartKing.com, you check out their different designs and models. You pick out which design applies to your business. They'll custom design it for you, custom build it for you, and ship it worldwide. CartKing.com.
Hey, you, podcast listener. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. Take the blue pill. You wake up in your bed and go back to listening to mundane podcasts that won't challenge your religious beliefs and your so-called truths about reality, the universe, and consciousness. Take the red pill. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast, hosted by Mark Anthony Peterson, and he will show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Event Horizon takes a walk into the paranormal with a splash of conspiracy. It's the podcast that would be born if David Icke and the X-Files had a baby. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast by Mark Anthony Peterson on Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Stitcher, or any of your other favorite podcast platforms. Remember, all we are offering is the truth, nothing more.
PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with pure soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. Order today at PureSoapFlakes.com, greenhome.com, Amazon.com, or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, thank you so much, Ed George. And the story is, what is this thing, man? The Boys in the Bunker. It's written by Dan Barry. Ed George is the guy who found them. The Boys in the Bunkhouse, Servitude and Salvation in the Heartland. Man, I'm going to get Dan Barry on here, too, as well, to tell his part of this story, too. That kind of thing. What do you call it? I know. Hey, but listen, Ed George is a great guy. You know, that's a guy who's living a life out there. There's no one interviewed him before. And see what you do. You go out and you find people, you know. I want to thank one of our listeners to promote the Send This Person to me. But you go out and you find someone who's never been interviewed before, and they got a great story to tell. They lived a life. They've done something with their life. They're an interesting person. They may not be the most eloquent person on the radio. We don't all need to be interviewing the same people. You don't need to listen to, well, let's say Ed Opperman, and then say, well, let me book that guest that Ed had on his show and put him on my show. Go out and find your own guests, and then we all, rising tides lift all boats. All of our shows, we all grow together, and we bring out new people, and we all have interesting people. We don't all need to be interviewing the same exact people. And you go through my archives and contact every one of my guests and try and book them. Find your own guests, and then we all have interesting topics. And then maybe I'd want to listen to your show the way you listen to my show. And then right after my show, contact the guests and try and book them for your show. And maybe your show would have as many ratings and stuff like that as my show, because you'd have your own guests. How's that sound? Anyway, thank you so much, Ed George. And the book is called, once again, The Boys in the Bunkhouse. Fascinating story. Hard to believe it's going on out there right now. He says it's still going on. People held in slavery. And I go look at my show I did about the Russian adoptions. It's worse than Pizzagate. It's worse than anything you can imagine. And it's just going on. This stuff is horrific. You have one life to live, man. You're living in slavery. And it's going on. Human trafficking all over the place. Did a show with Alan Warren about human trafficking. And Alan Warren, you can find him on KCAA. 9 p.m. 5 nights a week, right before the Opera Report. House of Mystery. Also, want you to check out my friend Patrick from Europe there. What's his programtokill.net. Now, this guy's got a series on YouTube that goes back and re-examines. He builds on the work of Dave McGowan, who wrote the book Program to Kill, and takes a look at these serial killers, these historic serial killing cases, and you see their connection to biker gangs, snuff films, child pornography, satanic cults, and you see the connection. There's a thread that weaves through all these stories. And Patrick from Belgium, great waffles over there, by the way, programtokill.net, and it has a series on YouTube called Program to Kill Satanic Cover-Up. And you can sit there for a month and start watching these videos, and you can't miss the thread that travels through all these stories. Guy's doing great work. He's been a guest on the show a couple times. Check out our Spreaker archives. Program to Kill Satanic Cover-Up. Done about 4 shows with him, about 6 hours, 8 hours, around that much time we've devoted to our friend Patrick. Great work he's doing out there. Thank you so much, Patrick. If you like what you hear, check out OppermanReport.com. We need a couple more members, guys. If I just had a couple of memberships, 13 months for $65. We're leaving for D.C. tomorrow night. So if I just could wake up and saw a couple of those memberships there in the PayPal account, $65, $120, how much the difference that would make. So if you've been thinking about a membership, tonight's the time to do it, okay? Help me get to D.C. Help us pay for the parking and the snacks and the coffee and that extra $25 they screw you at the airport for your luggage, all that kind of stuff. We have those little expenses we need to cover. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Ed George, man. You're a hero in my book, my friend. Okay, social work. That's the kind of work we need. We need more guys like Ed George out there keeping an eye for his fellow man.